From their campsite, Billy and his mother stared up at the most beautiful mountain they'd ever seen. It was tall and strong. There was snow at the very top that looked to Billy like vanilla ice cream. He wished he could taste it. The sun was about to set, and the air already felt cool on Billy's skin. Soon, he would crawl into their bright yellow tent and snuggle up in his sleeping bag or a very deep sleep. But first, Billy and his mother had to make hot chocolate. This was a very important tradition in their family, and it made him smile to think about it. Billy enjoyed watching his mother stir the chocolate into the hot water, and he liked it even more when they had marshmallows to put on top. When they were camping together, it was Billy's job to go down to the lake and fill their cooking pot with water to make the drinks. The pot was brown and silver and slightly dented from many good camping trips. He picked it up and off he went as he walked down toward the lake. Billy's legs felt tired, yet strong. He knew this was because of the long hike they made to their campsite today. It was an interesting feeling to be tired, but also to know that he could go further if he had to. When he got to edge the lake, Billy heard the calls of birds flying to their nests and the scurrying of squirrels climbing up their trees. They gathered food and water for the evening, just as he was doing too. As he walked closer to the water, everything grew quiet. The mountaintop towered over the far side of the lake. When Billy looked at the surface of the water, he saw the reflection of the mountain in it. It made the mountain look like it was upside down, as if the vanilla ice cream snow was almost touching his boots. Billy didn't want to disturb the beautiful image of the mountain, so he bent down and dipped his pot into the water very carefully as water slid into his pot. Billy remembered his mother saying that by being gentle and caring, we can be one with nature. He'd never totally understood what it meant to be one with nature, but now he started to feel it. Billy imagined himself as that mountain. What would his life be like? He wondered the mountain was big and strong, but also slow and patient as he let his imagination roam. He began to breathe like the mountain. He took a giant breath in, held it for just a moment, and then let out a big, long applause sigh. Maybe that was how a mountain sighed too. He thought. Just then Billy saw a rainbow trout in the lake. It poked its round silver head through the water, which disturbed the reflection of the mountain in the lake. Circles of water rippled out from where it had appeared, surprised. Billy let go of the pot with a splash. It bounced into the water and started to float away like a little metal boat, and the rainbow trout darted off below the music surface. At first, Billy didn't know what to do, so he looked all around him to see if there was anything he could use to get the pot back. There were rocks and a twisted tree covered in applause moss. Soon as the water grew still, the reflection of the mountain reappeared in the lake. Billy took another big breath in like the mountain. He held it for just a moment, and then, as he was letting out his long sigh, a soft wind whistled into Billy's ear. It was as if the mountain itself were speaking to him. "It's okay, Billy." The voice and the wind said, "Look under the tree." Billy listened to the mountain's words. He walked to the twisted tree whose long strands of moss created a protected space beneath them, pulling back the moss. Billy discovered a rowboat with a bright green seat. It would be perfect for rescuing his pot. Billy was tired from the long day. At first he didn't know if he had the energy to drag the rowboat down the rocks and into the water. But as he watched the pot spin in lazy circles in the lake, he knew what he had to do. If he wanted that mug of hot chocolate tonight, Billy pulled the rowboat down to the lake and slid himself onto the green seat. He found 2 wooden oars and plopped them into the water. Then he started to row. He rowed and rowed as hard as he could. He noticed insects bouncing along the surface of the water. Beautiful fish swam happily beneath them. He wondered which one was a fish that had surprised him in the first place. He was curious, but he wasn't upset with the fish, even though it meant he had to wait a little longer for his hot chocolate and bedtime. His mother had taught him to appreciate all living things. Billy was grateful that the fish had given him his chance for an adventure, so he whispered, "Thank you," down into the lake, hoping the fish would hear it. Billy rowed and rowed. He saw that he was getting closer to the pot which had floated to the very center of the lake when the boat was right next to it. Billy pulled his OES out of the water. They made a dripping sound as water from the lake ran off their ends. Carefully, he stretched his arm out as far as it would go over the side of the boat. His fingertips touched the cold water, and he felt a small chill run up his arm. Billy thought of their warm yellow tent. He thought of his sleeping bag, which was nice and cozy. He thought of the pillow that fit perfectly behind his neck. How nice it would be to snuggle up tonight. He stretched a little further and felt the metal side of the pot against his palm. Billy lifted it out of the lake. It was filled with water, but wasn't too heavy. At the very moment he brought the pot into his lap, he saw the mountain reflecting in the water inside it. The mountain had rocky slopes covered with trees. At the top were the bright white fields of ice cream-colored snow. It felt like a special moment between him and the mountain, and Billy wished it could last forever. But if he stayed there in this rowboat in the middle of the lake, holding his pot of water, with the picture of the mountain in it, he would never be able to enjoy the hot chocolate, so Billy set the pot down on the empty seat beside him. He didn't want a single drop of the water to spill. They needed all of it for the hot chocolate. He rowed very slowly back to shore. Every stroke was long and careful, and once again, Billy felt like the mountain because the mountain was never in a hurry. It took its time and watched the seasons pass around it and the sun rise and fall that reminded Billy to look up toward the sky. It was filled with pretty oranges and pinks and yellows like a giant quilt with all of his favorite colors. Finally, he felt the rowboat reach the shore. The sand and gravel crunched beneath its metal bottom. He pulled the oars in, watching them drip just like they had before. He picked up the pot of water and set it gently on a nearby rock. Then he dragged the rowboat back to the exact same spot beneath the twisted music tree. His mother had taught him to put things back where he found them. Since the rowboat didn't belong to him, he thought it was especially important to make sure it was safe now. After all, there might be children just like him who'd need to borrow the rowboat someday. Billy took his time, returned to camp. He said goodnight to the rowboat and to the tree with its long ropes of applause moss. He said goodnight to the lake and to the rainbow trout who had surprised him. But he waited to say goodnight to the mountain because it continued to watch over him as he walked all the way back to the tent where his mother was waiting. She waved to him and smiled when he arrived with a match. She lit the flame of their camp stove. Billy watched it dance below the pot as the water heated. Billy saw the mountain reflected in the pot. Once again, he told his mother all about his adventures with the pot in the boat and how he heard the whispering voice of the mountain. His mother smiled as she listened to his story. The water bubbled and gurgled as it started to boil. His mother turned off the flame and waited until the water was once again as still as the lake. Then she poured some into each of her mugs. She stirred in the chocolate and dropped pillowy marshmallows on top. Billy knew this would be the world's best hot chocolate because he'd worked so hard for it. His mother blew on both of their mugs to cool them down. Her breath was slow and steady. Before long, she winked at Billy and took a sip of the sweet, dark chocolate. Billy followed along and took a sip. The temperature was perfect. It was the best treat to end this amazing day together. They watched the final bits of daylight disappear behind the peak and saw a bright moon rise in the sky. Their campsite glowed in the silver moonlight. The yellow of their tent looked softer. His mother's coat was a gentler shade of blue. Different animals seemed to be scurrying about now, getting ready for bed. When he was finished, Billy unzipped the door of the yellow tent and climbed inside. He snuggled up tight in his sleeping bag with his head resting on his favorite pillow. He thought about his wonderful day. Billy appreciated his mother for bringing him on this trip, and he appreciated her perfect hot music chocolate. He appreciated the fish and the birds in the lake, but more than anything, he appreciated the mountain or helping him when he needed it the most. So he decided to take one last big mountain breath. He breathed in, held it for just a moment, and then let out a long applause. Music sighed. He whispered good night to the mountain, which watched over their campsite with a bright yellow tent, and then he drifted off into a